It's about time to get started. Well, this will be training for the PMO and your SMART goal projects. And we're going to go through a few things here. Feel free to ask questions throughout the chat. Rhonda's going to be monitoring the chat, so feel free to type in questions there or let us know that you have a question. There's a whole lot of information I'm going to go through, so feel free to ask as many questions as needed to understand it. We're going to cover what the PMO is, what is Smart Sheets, and what are SMART goals. That's just some basic information that everybody will need to know so that everything makes sense going forward. And then we're going to demo the accessing of the PMO, how you get there, what the PMO hub is, and what you can get to from our hub. And then how to enter your SMART goals, and then we'll show you the projects and their templates. Okay. So first off, what is the PMO? PMO is an abbreviation for Project Management Office. It's used across the project management industry, so it's a very standard abbreviation. So if you were to Google it, you could find all kinds of information about project management. What we're going to provide is some training on project management. We have some training already on Absorb that's already in existence. Some of it is based on the Project Management Institute, which does the project management certification. I am PMP certified. I've been doing project management for about 15 years, so I have a pretty good background in project management. So we will provide some of the training, and then specific to YPO, I may have some periodic calls that will just cover additional topics. We're also going to provide some of the Smartsheet training. Smartsheet is a tool that we're using for managing all the projects, and so you may it may really help to understand Smartsheets well. So there is additional training for Smartsheets on our hub, and I'll show you how to get there. And it's actually on the Smartsheets website, and we have a special code that gets us into the paid training, so you can get in there and access that stuff. We're also going to be working on the reporting. We're automatically going to be pulling information from each of the SMART goals and projects and rolling that up into a report to senior leadership so that they have a good idea of where everybody stands on their SMART goals. If you remember, for the past year, there was an email that would go out that would say, update your SMART goal and so on. Well, this will be hopefully a little more automated and also give you the tools to manage those a little bit better. The next thing is best practices for project management. If you're running any projects and you run into issues or need advice, we're going to have some best practices for those projects. Get everybody to use similar methodologies so that when anybody's working on one project versus another project, it has a similar set of templates and a feel. And then escalation help. Essentially, escalation is a good thing in project management because it's the way you resolve issues. So if you have an issue, which will happen on every project, you take it to the decision makers. So the person managing the project, the responsible, may not have the authority to make the ultimate decision. It's usually the accountable that has that authority. Or if you're using a resource from somewhere else in the company, you would take it to the accountable for that person to work out what's prioritized, your SMART goal or whatever they're working on. And that way you're not making the decision when you don't really have the authority to make that decision. You can escalate it there. Or if you have an issue, you can take it and get to the right resources to resolve that issue. So escalation is a good thing. It keeps things from lingering and getting worse. All right, so next is, what is Smartsheets? So Smartsheet is not a replacement for Excel, although it does 90% of what Excel does and a lot more. It's not a replacement for Microsoft Project, though it does 90% of what Microsoft Project does and a whole lot more. What it does have that gives it an advantage for being a project management type tool is automation. So it allows for gathering of information from multiple projects and reporting it up onto dashboards and creating these reports. It has these dashboards so that you can have good analytics on those projects where you stand on your tasks and project plans, and it can keep track of that and help your project team stay aware. You can control access to the information, give read-only access to it or write access to it, so you can control the access. There's integration with Teams, Microsoft Teams, so that your whole team could be collaborating on Microsoft Teams and still have access to Smartsheets from within Teams. And you can get your notifications in Teams instead of in an email. It's a way to configure that. And so it also has a lot of ways to do alerts and notifications for when a task is either late or upcoming or the due date's approaching. It can send alerts for those sort of things. Or if somebody assigns something to you, it can notify you automatically that someone assigned something to you. So Smartsheet is a useful tool, and we're going to cover that quite a bit on this call. And then next is, what are SMART goals? So SMART goals that's a pretty standard term. If you were to Google it, you would find all the information about what a SMART goal is. And so you could read up on it in detail. But essentially, when you have a project, and I refer to project as far as YPO goes, is everything we pretty much do. If you've been running a SMART goal last year that required you to complete something and it had multiple steps, that was a project. A project is something that has a beginning and an end, and has a sequence of tasks that need to be completed to accomplish a goal. And so that's a project. So I use the term project a lot. Essentially, that's what everybody does. And I may refer to the project manager for these projects. That's everybody who's been responsible for a SMART goal. You've essentially been the project manager for that SMART goal. So if I start talking about project managers and projects, I'm referring to the SMART goals and the responsibles for those SMART goals. So as far as SMART goes, you want to make sure that your goals for the project are specific, that you can measure the results, that it is attainable. It's not some ridiculous thing that's pie in the sky. It's relevant to the strategies and goals of the company, and that it's timely. It's time bound. It has a time limit. It's not something that goes on indefinitely. So your goal would have a limit. So for projects that go over multiple years, you're going to set up a SMART goal for this fiscal year, and you're going to have a goal to be reached for the year, and so that you'd have a SMART goal for the year, as well as probably one for your whole project. But essentially, what they're looking for this year would be the ones that are going to be completed in the year. If you attended the mom meeting, you've probably seen this picture that Scott shared. I'm going to cover it just so people have an idea of what a focus topic is, and a SMART goal, and a strategic initiative, and all that. So if you remember, there are strategic initiatives that the strategy committee has come up with. There's 4 of them: the relevant, and extraordinary, and prominent, and so on. So you've got those 4 strategic initiatives that are also divided up into transformational initiatives. There's 10 of those. Well, all of those are focus topics. The term focus topic is simply a project that is cross-functional. So when someone says focus topic, just think it's a project that's been defined by YPO, and it's cross-functional. All focus topics are SMART goals. So keep that in mind. If it's a focus topic, well, it's also a SMART goal. If it's a strategic initiative, it's a focus topic and it's a SMART goal. Separately, you can have member-initiated activity that may or may not be a focus topic. If it's a focus topic, it's also a SMART goal. If it's not a focus topic, well, it's still a SMART goal. Everything we do is a SMART goal, whether it's a focus topic or not. So we also have operational projects that take place around the company that are not defined in the initiatives, but those department projects, some of those may be focus topics, cross-functional teams defined by YPO, and some of those projects may not, and they're still SMART goals. So anyhow, so the picture is basically saying that all focus topics are SMART goals. Not all SMART goals are focus topics. Committee goals same thing. Some of those are SMART goals, but not focus topics. But some of the focus topics are given to the committees as their SMART goals. So it's kind of a two-way arrow there. Some of those come through all the way through and there's focus topics, but then some of them that they create are just SMART goals. So anyhow, um, this discussion could go on forever and ever, but essentially that's a high-level overview of what this is. So now we can get into putting in SMART goals and projects into the PMO. So how you get to the PMO is it's pretty easy. There's only 3 clicks or 2 clicks. If you go to SharePoint and you go to Tools, under Tools there's Project Management Office, and that will take you to our navigational hub. So we'll do that right quick. We'll go to SharePoint. I guess I gotta close that out. Here we go. And we'll go to Tools. We'll just hover and click on Project Management Office. And that takes you into what we call our navigational hub. This navigational hub is in Smartsheets. And so we're in Smartsheets, and basically we have a bunch of dashboards listed here, and we'll go into those. We have some forms for entering in your SMART goals. And then down below, we have some other useful links. So I'm going to start at the bottom right quick and talk about the training that's available. So if you're looking for Smartsheet training, at the bottom, we have a link for more Smartsheet training. This is the training that is at Smartsheet. The first time you access it, you're going to need our YPO access code. It's listed right here. So once you enter that in, you can go to it as much as you want. But the first time you enter it, you'll need that access code. So if you go into Smartsheets training, this will take you to all their courses. You can be certified in here. You can take a look at their core features, some of their premium features, and really learn how to do some of the advanced things, or stick onto the core features and focus on how to work with the different sheets, work with formulas, the row functions, and setting up dashboards. You can make your own dashboards to track what you're looking for, that sort of thing. So you got a lot of stuff you could do with in Smartsheet training. Separately, we've got PM training. This takes you to Absorb. And in Absorb, we have project management training. So if you wanted to see some of the general project management training, it's in here. And like I said, everybody that's been running these SMART goals, you're a project manager, you just didn't know it. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and same thing. Agile training is also in Absorb if you're interested in Agile type projects. Keep in mind, Agile is a mindset. It's not necessarily a methodology. So I know there's a lot of people that talk about being Agile. They're not always referring to Agile type project management. A lot of time they're just talking about being more Agile in the way they do things. So Agile is a way of doing some projects, and the traditional project management is a way to do other projects. Agile is perfect for software development because you want to do iterations where you launch it, you see what works, what doesn't, you move on to the next thing, and keep doing iterations to fix things and focus on the highest value items first. Things that have certain end dates, traditional project management works best for that. So if you have an event, you got to do all your planning and get all your stuff and get everything ready, and then you have your event or your launch or whatever. And so that's where you'd want to do traditional type project management. So anyhow, those are the trainings down below. And one other thing you can do to learn is we have a Q&A section here. In our Q&A, we have this training that we're listening to right now. We have the first one we did up here, and then we have lots of questions and answers all through here, along with some videos for various different things. So video for how to submit your SMART goal right there, video or what we talked about as far as what a focus topic is and so on. We've got a video for what a RACI is that we're going to cover on this call. what a rate is that we're going to cover on this call. So if you get to the end of this meeting or can't hear this whole meeting, you can come back in here and either re-listen to it and skip around in the video, or see individual pieces down below. All right, so that's all the training and learning that you can do. And so now we're going to talk about your SMART goal. You got something?
Yes, we have a question.
Okay.
The question is, do we have access to all functions in Smartsheet? This individual tried to create a new workspace and couldn't find it.
You should have access to all functions. If you don't, we need to see what's going on with your license. Everybody at YPO should have a license to have full functionality. So if you don't, then we should figure out what it is. I don't control the licensing, so if there was a license problem, we'd need to contact the help desk. But you should be able to easily create more workspaces. So if you wanted to right click on there, create workspace, everybody should be able to create a workspace in there.
Thank you.
Okay, so back over here, we're going to go through how to enter a SMART goal, and then we'll show you the projects afterward. All right, so as we mentioned, you can enter them if there's a focus topic, or if it's not a focus topic and it's just a SMART goal, you can always enter it there. If it's a committee or a council SMART goal, there's a form for that. And then lastly, if it's none of those, if you just have a project that you want to use templates for and it hasn't been defined, perhaps it's in your department, you're welcome to enter in what we call a special project, which is you want to use the templates, but it's just your own project, or it's a group of people running a project and you're welcome to use our templates. And so you would enter in a special project. So anybody can use these templates for anything they want. And if you have suggestions and recommendations, please let us know for how to make stuff more useful. So let's go into this form here. If we click on this focus topic, we're going to enter in a focus topic here. Then we come to this form pops up. So you need to give a name to your project, put a name in there. Notice it's a required field. Anything with the red star is a required field. The first time you pass through this form, you may or may not have all the information you need. Enter in what you do know, and at the bottom there's a question that says, I am still working on this, or the project is ready to submit. If you're not done and you want maybe the accountable to look over it or something else, just list it as I'm still working on this. And when you hit the submit button, it will save it and you'll be able to access it again before we spin up the project. So keep in mind when you're going through, you can just fill something in on the fields you're not ready to answer. So we have our project name, and then next up, we want to go over the project description, project objectives, and the solutions background. This is the what, the why, and the how of the project. So you want to answer those questions. And then below that, we have this confidential flag. 99% of the projects should not check confidential. This is for a few projects that have sensitive information that should not be shared with the company. There's only 1 or 2 projects that should have that checked, but nevertheless, that's what that flag is. Select your fiscal year, and then you get to this section, which is your SMART goals. So you've got if you have multiple milestones in your project that are SMART goals, enter those in and use the SMART metrics. And then for your project as a whole, what are your success criteria? How is your project going to be measured to determine whether it's successful or not, whether you completed the project or not? Improved customer satisfaction is not a measurable goal, but if you did a survey and you got a certain score, then that would be something measurable. Also, make sure you don't put something on there that you don't have control over. So if it's adoption of something, that may not be something that you have control over. You may have control over the delivery of all the information for it, but maybe not the adoption of it, or a resolution being passed by the board. Maybe it's the presenting to the board is what the goal was. So keep in mind that it's attainable, something that you can achieve and measure. Transformational initiative, if it's a transformational initiative, select this. If it's not a transformational initiative, you put none. Transformational initiative, there are 10, um, and you select the one it is. If it's one of those 10, it's also one of these first four, which are the strategic initiatives, the impactful, relevant, extraordinary, prominent. If it was none, then select either operational or member activity, depending on what your project was for this focus topic. The budget, if you know your budget, enter it here. If not, just put 0. Your risks, list out your risks, anything that might impact your project. If your project is at risk because it depends on another project, well, put it here. Your project might not take place if it's never passes a certain committee's vote. Then you might put that in here. Or if it might get canceled because of something, put that in here. And then you've got stakeholder groups, would be anybody impacted by the project, either it's members or anybody else. Just list it out. That's an optional one, but it's good to know who's going to be impacted by your project. Next is the RACI section. So you want to put in who the responsible, accountable, consultant, informed are for the project. The first two are the ones that are required. You got to have a responsible, got to have an accountable to put one in. And notice it says email address of the responsible. There's a little bug that has to have the email address for us to link it to your account. At some point, they'll be able to do it by just name, but right now you've got to actually put the email address of that person. And then,
We have a couple of questions.
great.
The first question is, I have goals that cross multiple areas. It's a strategic initiative and a focus topic and a committee goal. How would that be captured?
Okay, so you would pick your transformational initiative, your strategic initiative. We're entering a focus topic with this form. And then down below, we have your, if it's a committee council goal. So you'll get down here and check mark this. These are a couple optional fields, but put in here that it's a committee goal, and then select which committee or council it belongs to. They should all be listed here. If they're not, please let us know, but it should be listed. And the reason you want to select this is it's going to show up on a dashboard specifically for that committee or council, so that you can keep track of what projects belong to those committees or councils.
Thank you. We also have another question. It says RLMs get regional goals. So would they enter goals here and categorize as member-led activity? So I'll take that one. Right now, we have not addressed entering regional goals in here. We want to have a conversation with leadership in that respect. But so at the moment, I would say don't put your regional goals in here. But we do want to have a conversation with chapters and regions and make sure that we're capturing those regional goals the best way possible.
And when we're going to have an answer to that in the next week or so, aren't we, Rhonda? When are we doing that
Yes,
meeting?
yes, we should.
Okay, so then depending on that decision, we'll have a form specifically for those goals. If not, say the decision is not to have them in here, you can still run them as a special project if you want to use these templates, so it would still be available, but we'll know for sure whether we're tracking them specifically for the regional goals. Okay, finishing up the last of the fields, you'll enter your start and end date. If you have a socialization plan, check that. If not, this one's not required. Communication plan, same thing, not required. Check it if you have it. If you have any dependencies you want to list them. It's not a required field. If you're dependent on any digital platforms, it's good to list them out, but it's not a required field. And that's it. If you have any documents you want to submit with this to keep track of any decisions that were made or any additional information about it, you can enter them here and then hit the submit button, and it will create the input that we need to generate the project. Now, if you clicked I'm still working on this, I'll show you how we can edit this form after we click submit. So I'll go ahead and close that form since I didn't fill in all the required fields. And so now after you submit it, it will close, and we will receive notification that it's been entered, and then if it's ready to go, we'll launch it. But separately, if you wanted to update this, or you wanted your accountable to go take a look at it, or maybe you're consulting with someone, you want them to go look at it, to get back to that form, you're going to go to your projects and goals. And this right here will list all the projects that you've entered. Even after the project launches, you can still access it here. So these are all the ones that you're responsible for, consulted for. So I'm going to click on that. And that takes us to a view called dynamic view. You don't have to remember that, but essentially it's where your projects are. Um, so if you're accountable, or you're consulted, informed, or whether you're the responsible, you can find those projects that you are responsible for, or those projects you're accountable for. And you only see the ones that belong to you in that respect. So like my responsible, if I click on that, these are the projects I can see. These are the forms that I've entered as me as the responsible. Um, so I have a test project on here that we'll look at in a bit, but if I click on it, it brings up the form that I entered to put the project in here. So it has all the data preserved, and you can go in and update it. And at the bottom, you can change the I'm still working on it to project is ready to submit when you're ready. But essentially, it's your form, and you can go through and modify it as needed. So you can have access to your projects and stuff. So that is how you get back to it. If you wanted to, if you were the accountable, or you could have your accountable come in here and look at the projects, and they would see the projects that they were listed as the accountable for. And for the test project, I'm listed as both the accountable and the responsible, so it shows up there. And so then they could look at the form and they could do updates. For people that are consulted and informed, they can also see if they were listed as consulted on a project, but they'll have a read-only access. So they would need to contact the responsible to make the updates. But since they're being consulted, they can take a look and see what was entered in to the project. So now that those have all been entered and this has been selected to project is ready to submit, we will get a notice that says this project is ready to be submitted. We'll check it over. We'll check that the SMART goal actually exists, and that it's listed correctly as the focus topic and so on. And then we will launch the project. So when we launch the project, you'll be able to find the project on these dashboards. If it's a special project, you'll find it on this dashboard. If it's a SMART goal or a focus topic or both, you'll find it on the respective dashboard. So if it's a focus topic, you'll find it here and on the SMART goal. If it's only a SMART goal one, you'll find it on the SMART goal one. If it's committee or council project that we've set up, then you'll find it here. So for example, if I go to this dashboard, it lists out the different committees, and you can go find the projects for those committees. And right now there's 3 in there, those committee council projects. If I was to come over here to the SMART goals, it would list out all the SMART goal projects that have been launched. And we have 11 projects that have been launched as SMART goals. And so that's listed there. So I'm going to come back to this dashboard. We'll stay here. And so with these projects, you have some reporting that is done on those projects, and that's pulled from the actual project. So in this dashboard, you know, I know we've gone through a bunch. You have some information. We have 1 project listed as impactful, 3 are listed as relevant, 2 is extraordinary, 1 is prominent, 3 are operational, and 1's member activity. So that's just informational. You don't have to check that very often, but you can find your projects down here. I'm going to go to my test project 22 by clicking on that. And that takes me to the project dashboard. This is for just this project. And this is what gets created from your intake sheet. When you have your intake sheet, this is what gets created along with these forms listed across the top. These icons are the project forms that get created. So we have a dashboard here that shows the current status of the project. It's got some basic information about the project. The financials are going to be linked to Financial Force, so there's nothing you have to do here, but it'll show your budget and actual expenditures. There's nothing that the project team or the responsible or accountable have to do here. Once we get it linked up, it'll just display what you've got. And then the schedule data will cover how this stuff is entered in. And then you've got your RAID items. RAID is not bug spray, it's just your risks, actions, issues, and decisions. So it's a way to track all the items on your project. So we're going to cover those in more detail up here, and then we'll come back to the dashboard. So at the top, we have your project forms. And I'm going to start from the left and work our way across. So we'll cover each of them. So the first one is your team roster, often called the RACI, because it covers your responsible, your accountable, consulted, and informed. This this is a sheet that just is for your team to know who is working on your project. If you don't have anybody working on your project but yourself, then it's would be, you'd have your responsible listed, and you don't need anything else below it. But it's good to list out who's working on your project, team members if they're actually doing work, who's being consulted if they're providing information or feedback. You're informed, people that you need to keep up to date. So maybe you need to keep these important people up to date. If you have any governance contacts, Marcom, if Marcom's going to be doing any work on the project, or if you have any contact with product, then you would have that there. And then some additional external stakeholders, if you're using a third-party vendors, if you need to keep members up to date, you might list your external stakeholders that you want to keep informed of the project. So this is for you. This data here really doesn't go anywhere. So it's for the project team to know who's on the project team. At the top of all these forms that we're going to go through, there's this navigation section. So we can go back to the dashboard by clicking there, or we can go to the other forms by clicking those links. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and as we move across to the top, to show you each of the forms. Okay, so the next form is the charter. This charter is created um, so you have something that's like a printable version of your project. And essentially, the data that you've entered into the intake form gets put into this form, and you could essentially print it to a PDF or to a printer and be able to hand the document to somebody and say, "This is my project." It's got the information, the who, the what, the who, what, why, how sort of thing. It's got your success criteria down there. So it's got your data in a printable format. So that's all the charter is. Um, next, and you do want to make sure your accountable agrees with what you've got into the charter, so that you're executing the correct project. The next is the project plan. This tends to scare people at first, but all you need to know is a project plan is just a sequence of tasks that you need to do to complete your project. So let's shrink it up so it doesn't look so scary at first. So essentially, this is what you're going to see when you get your project plan to start with. It's just generically called milestone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can customize it to fit your project. You can delete the milestones that you don't need. You can rename them. You can add tasks. So if I open this up, it's generically called task 1, 2, and 3. Put in what it takes to complete your project. If an analogy would be like making a sandwich. Get the bread would be task 1. Get the bologna, get the cheese, get the mayonnaise, get the lettuce, and then you've got your tasks, and you list out all the tasks that it takes to complete the project, and list them out. And then each of those tasks you can assign to somebody. So you can assign them to different people, and when you assign it to them, they'll be notified that they've been assigned a task and the dates that they need to complete that task. So you just list out your tasks. You can add more in here. So just hit the insert button, or you can right click and insert a row, and you add your tasks. And add your tasks in here. You notice these balls are automatic. Essentially, when these balls are for the schedule. Green means it's either not started or it's completed. Um, Yellow means the due date is approaching. Over here, you can see it's saying that, hey, the due date's approaching and it's not complete yet, so it's yellow. It's in progress. And then red means it's either late or it doesn't have that data put in here. So if we were to put some data in here, let's put in a date of tomorrow, and it's a 1 day long task. And let's put some more in here, and we'll put in some percentage completes. So
We have a question.
go ahead.
It says, can anyone that is either responsible or accountable update tasks as project goes along?
They can. So there is user access that you, as the responsible, will have the ability to update. So anybody that has edit access can update the data here. What they cannot do is like change the columns or anything like that. That requires administrator. But if you have this share button, so if you have anybody on your project team that says, I can't get there, check this share button. And in here, you will have everybody that the project has been shared with. And one of the things that will be here is group one, which is the organization. Leave that in there as view access. Separately, you can come in here and assign people editor access. If you give them editor access and the ability to share, they can share the sheet. If you do editor access but they cannot share, you can do that. So they can just come in and do their updates. If you want to give them view only access, you do it there. So you have the control of adding people in to edit your sheet as needed. So the responsible will automatically be able to edit and share all the project documents. And then they can add more people to it as they see fit. Okay. So so now as we've added items in, we may want to add some comments to it, just information about it. And then you've got your percent completes. Notice that that's yellow. If I complete that task, everything turned green because it's done, and so did that ball turned green. Now, if, for example, this guy here, say this was actually supposed to take place earlier, it turned red because the date has passed. It's late and it's not complete. So you get a little red ball there, just saying, this thing's this late. But of course, once it's complete, it's green again because you're on track again. So it's just some automatic formatting so that you can keep an eye on what to look at. You start, when I go into a project, the first thing I do is look for anything that's yellow or red and make sure that those tasks are being addressed. And then at some other point, I'll check the rest of the tasks to make sure the dates are good on those. So you add your milestones in. Oh, and notice the milestones, like if this is an important milestone, notice it's showing 30%. Well, that was based on what I've put down here. So if this was actually not complete and that was only 0%, I am now only 14% complete. And as I completed that task, it went up to 30%. And if this one was done, it'd go up even higher. So now we're at 38%. Now we've got 4 out of 5 tasks done and it's showing 38% complete. That's because this last task on here is 20 days long and these other tasks were only 5 and 1 days long. So you take these 12 days of effort versus the 20 days, and that's where you get that 38%. So it's a weighted average. And then these milestones all roll up to the project plan, the total project percent complete. So we've got a 13% for the total project there.
Sean,
Mm-hmm.
what if I have a project that has multiple SMART goals? How do I handle that?
Okay, so if you have a project that has multiple SMART goals, then you can set milestones. Right now, you have milestones on your project. You can define it to be a milestone, or you could define it to be a particular SMART goal. So now this is going to get reported to senior leadership for your SMART goal status on those milestone level SMART goals. And if you do set this to be a SMART goal, you need to fill in the SMART goal metric with your metric, your completion criteria. So so fill this in if you've got something set as a SMART goal. This will get reported up as the SMART goal, and then say this one over here is another SMART goal that they defined, then put it there. Not everything is a SMART goal. It's These are the SMART goals that they defined. If they did not define multiple SMART goals for your project, then just the project level information would get reported back as the SMART goal. So it really depends on if you have a focus topic and that is the SMART goal, then you'll rely on the items at the top. If you were given a focus topic and there's multiple projects that belong to that focus topic, then you could have individual projects and this would still, each of those would still get reported up. If you were given a project with, or you given a bunch of SMART goals that really belong together as one project, that's when you would set these as SMART goals so that you could track individual SMART goals on a single project. And then those will get reported up. So I'll leave one of those set as a SMART goal so that it shows up on that other dashboard when we go look at it. Okay, so we have our SMART goal listed there. We got to this so it'll show up later. So we'll have my acceptance or completion criteria there. So we have our percent completes. We have our people that it's assigned to. This can be used to notify them. So anytime you assign their name, they can get notified that something's been assigned to them. Anytime the due date approaches, they can get notified that the end date has been reached, and anytime they are late on something, they can be notified that they're late on one of their tasks. You've got your start and end dates, which are used to also show things on the calendar. So over here, we've got stuff showing up on a Gantt chart. And then the duration, which is sort of the level of effort. And then you have predecessors that you can set up. So see this arrow here? Basically, this is saying that this task can't start until the task before it is done. So you've got this predecessor set up. It's saying this line here is dependent on 45. Over here, you'll see it says 45 up here, which is task 1. So it's dependent on task 1. It's a way to sequence your tasks so that they stay in order. When you change the dates on stuff, it'll stay in order. So here, let's say, I'm going to get rid of that one. And let's say that this was actually dependent on 45 and this guy was dependent on 46. So if this guy is dependent on 45, notice over here that it's sitting right here, but we want it to happen after that task and we're going to make it dependent on there. When I hit enter, it moves it to take place after that task. And if we actually wanted this guy to take place after that one, then we would type in 46. And this will move to take place after that one. And you'll see it moved. Now, if I wanted this task here to take place after that, and it has stuff that depends on it, so like the next line below has a predecessor of it, notice that both of these are going to move. So we'll put 47 in there. And so now those have all pushed out so that they stay in sequence. So now if this date pushes out, say this wasn't really done, not that you have to change that, but say this was actually going to take 10 days. Notice when this gets longer, all these tasks are going to push out. All those had to push out because the schedule had to accommodate this task that's actually going to take 10 days, and it pushes the schedule out. And you can see your percent complete in there as a little bar in there. So you can see all those push out. You don't have to do predecessors, but if you want to use them, they're available so that you can sequence your tasks. So that's available if you're more advanced.
We have a couple of more questions.
Okay.
The first question is, if you have a project that's repeatable year over year, can you copy the project plan to the following year so that you don't have to start from the beginning?
You can copy the contents of that plan to the next one. There are a couple caveats. to things that will copy, like the predecessors don't copy, so you'll have to retype those in. But the tasks, you can copy those tasks in, and you can copy in the dates. Though I don't think you're going to want to copy in the dates, but there's stuff you can copy from one to the other. You just select it all and paste it over there. You'd want to expand everything first. If you were talking about having multiple projects, use one as a template, then that's another discussion that we can talk about, because we're going to do that for events, and we're going to do it for maybe Marcom and some other types of projects where they want to have one project be a template, and we can set that up, but that takes a little bit more of a discussion. So if you have something where you want one template to be used on multiple projects, then you'll let us know. But if you just wanted to copy last year's project into this one, then it'd be like doing a cut and paste. Just copy that and Control C, copy that and paste it into your new one. You could expand all these out and just copy everything. You can do multiple columns, and it'll take everything over. And the columns that don't copy will just come in blank. So stuff like predecessor, because line 45 on this project plan may not be 45 on the next project plan. So that one doesn't copy over correctly. So.
All right, and then the next question is, what if you have tasks or milestones that are dependent on other projects?
Okay, so if they're dependent on other projects, you can't link it to the other project. So what you'll want to do is put in here that it's dependent on another project. And that's also, if it's dependent on another project, you should list that as one of your risks, because that other project, you don't have control over that other project. Or at least this project doesn't have control of the other project. So you'll want to list it as a risk. So you can't link to another project in here. Well, you can. Actually, you can. If you want to set up a link like that, we can have a separate discussion, but you could technically link this to another plan. But that's a bit more in depth on how we're going to link from one plan to another. Okay. Good question, though. It can be done. So if you do need something like that, we'll talk about that. Okay. So we've got our project plan in here. You've entered in all your tasks. You've kind of put them in order of all the tasks you want to have. You've got the statuses updated as needed. Here, let's make one late so we get a late one. Oops, it's got a predecessor. Sometimes you'll also notice you got a predecessor here. Like if I change this date to sometime sooner, it's going to say, hey, you got a predecessor there. So you'll get a message about it. So I removed the predecessor, and I'm going to make it sooner than that, so it'll be late. That's not late enough. I'll change it down to 1 day. Okay, that way we have a late task when we go to the main board. All right, so let's go back to the project dashboard. Notice before we go that our project is 14% complete. Our special SMART goal is 67% complete, but our project plan is 14% complete. So let's go over there. So our project plan, that information shows up down here in the schedule data. Notice we have 14% complete. This bar will turn green as your project progresses. So if anybody says, oh, how's your project going? Well, you're 14% complete. Sounds like an exact number. Well, it is, because it's based on the tasks that were defined. And so you're not just guessing, it's about a 25%. Oh, no, it's really 14% based on what's been completed or not. So that's kind of nice. And then down here, I see something I need to fix. Our milestone 2 didn't show up as a SMART goal. I'm going to fix that right quick. I'm an admin, so I can fix it quick. Should show both of those. I will fix the template so you don't have to deal with that. All right, ignore what I just did and pretend it all worked right the first time. Okay, so we come in here and your milestones all show up here. So you can see your project at a glance, all the milestones, kind of the schedule. That's June, July, August, September. You can kind of see when those milestones take place. So if you were to take a snapshot of your project as a whole, you've got a picture of the schedule right there. And you can kind of see what stage your project's in. You can see where the work has been completed and where it hasn't been completed. So that's a quick snapshot. Your task health, you've got 6 items that are late, 14 that are in progress or due in the next period of time, the next 5 days. And you've got the rest that are green that are either not started or completed. Over here is your 2-week out report. So everything due in the next 2 weeks is listed here. So you can kind of keep a pulse on your project here. Your team could come look and see what's due in the next 2 weeks there. So this is all pulled from that project plan. If you have any additional questions on that, you can go to the help button there. One more thing pulled from the project plan is at the top is this My Tasks report. This is useful because your project team can use this button. When I click on this button, it's going to show you everything assigned to me, Sean O'Neill. If you click on the button, it'll show everything assigned to you. Or if your team members click on it, it'll show everything assigned to them. So when I click to that, it shows me everything on the project plan that's assigned to me and only me. So all the clutter's gone. I just see what's assigned to me, when it's due. And from here, I can update the status of it. So if I say, oh, well, actually, I've done that, and hit the save button, that will update the project plan, and that will be just fine. So they can come do their updates in here. They can make their comments in here on all the things that are due for them. So that should help them eliminate the clutter and only look at what's theirs. So that's kind of a useful thing, is that My Tasks report. So all that came from the project plan, is their sequence of events. All right. Going to move on to the RAID log. Again, it's not bug spray, it's your actions. Now this I have open on every one of my calls with project teams. This is a very useful way to track all your action items. I have it open on every project call because otherwise things get lost. If you just do it in project minutes, meeting notes, and stuff like that, those meeting notes get sent out in emails or get lost or whatever. You could keep your meeting notes here if you wanted, but I tend to keep all my action items here and they never get lost. So as things get added, I'll add an action item. So if someone says something on a call that we need to track and make sure it gets completed, I'll put it on here. I'll say it's an action item. It's new and it's open. This one is medium importance and low impact. So it's like how important, what's the impact of the project, your new item, and I'll assign that to somebody. I'll assign it to me. That way, I'll get notified that I have an action item, and I'll give myself a due date of tomorrow. So notice the automatic coloring saying it's due tomorrow. It's in the next 5 days or so. When it's resolved, I can put my resolution and then close it. So this is and also I'm going to get a unique ID here. So if I hit save, I get a unique ID. So if anybody starts talking, if you want to send an email about this and you type in RAID 15 when you send that email, and you want to search for the email thread later, in your search button, type in RAID 15, it'll bring up your thread in Outlook. So it's nice to have a unique ID that you can search for everything. So it's nice to use that unique ID when you're sending an email about it or anything like that. It's easy to pull it up if you just do a search on RAID 15. So that's action items. All the action items on my phone calls go here. If you have an issue, is something that has taken place that is a problem. So you got an issue on the project. You can record your issues that need to be taken care of and assign it to somebody, make it important or not. So keep track of your issues that have taken place. And then if your issue is going to need escalated, you can set a flag to escalate it, and that will go to on the page as saying, hey, we need an escalation. So that's a flag for escalation. So keep track of your issues. Issues are something that has taken place that is a problem and could impact the project. Now, a risk is a little bit different. A risk is something that has not taken place. A risk is something that might take place that could impact the project. So if there's an event taking place next week, and or there's a vote taking place next week, and the outcome of that vote might impact the project. You might put that on here saying the vote next week could cancel the project or whatever. All the risks that might take place, you want to keep track of those so you're not surprised by them. If you actually just record your risks, that puts it in your mind of something that might go wrong. You can come up with a mitigation strategy for making sure that it either doesn't take place, or that if it does, you minimize the impact of that risk. So risk planning is useful for looking ahead to make sure stuff doesn't derail your project. And then lastly are your decisions. If you make a decision to change something or do something differently, and you want to record that decision, then you should record your decisions here so that 6 months from now, if you wonder why something was done, you've got the decision recorded that says, we did it because of this. And so you don't lose it. And so all these will be tracked for the entire length of the project. You've got a history to it. And typically it can get to be 100 lines long of all the actions you've got, or longer. So you may need to filter it when you're looking at it. So there should be a filter that says what is open, and so it gets rid of all the other items. Let me minimize the legend. Gets rid of all the closed items and shows you only what's open. So it kind of gives you a filter when you're on a call, so you're not looking at all the stuff that's already been closed. You can just show what is open. And if you're ever looking for something that's been closed before, you can turn off the filter and go look at the closed items. So very useful. I use this on all my project calls so that nothing ever gets lost. Nothing um, lingers for too long. I always assign a person and a date to it so that somebody knows that they need to take care of it. So if we go back to our dashboard, down at the bottom of our dashboard, we have our rate items. So on our rate items, we have our listing of how many risks and actions we have, and issues and decisions. So it's just kind of informative of how many are out there. We have that.
Tom, we have a question too.
Okay.
Someone has asked if they would be able to attach items in the RAID rows.
Yes. So if you wanted to record data about that item, you can drop a file on this line, and if you do, it'll show up over here. So all of your attachments associated with that action item, or that issue, or that decision, like if you've got a document of that decision, drop it on here and it'll be saved with your project and it won't get lost. And so you can save as many documents as you want there, and it'll list out all the documents for that decision. And it's drag and drop. So if you drop it on this line, it'll pop in right over there. And then you can download the items and open them from here if you like. And then your escalated item that we flagged will show up here. So everybody's aware that, hey, we do have to do something about this issue so it doesn't derail the project, and the sooner the better. And then informationally, how many have been opened versus closed. We can see all our open items down here. It is just a quick view of all the open RAID items. If we wanted to just see it and you click on it, it'll take you to just the listing of those open items, so that you could maybe even just print this off if you wanted or whatever. So that's a filtered report that shows your open items. So you have your RAID items all down here. So between our rate items down here and our project plan data right here, our financials, which will come in from Financial Force automatically here, basic information about the project here, your project ID. You've almost covered all of this dashboard. We've covered these documents here on the left. We've covered my tasks, and now the budget, which is a quick form. Let's go into that right quick. Budget is mostly going to be updated by Financial Force once we get the connector set up. The only thing that you might notice, all of those are locked because you won't update this stuff. This is going to come from my Financial Force. But if you wanted to list any outstanding commitments that are not in Financial Force, you could do that. So if you had any commitments that you knew were out there and you wanted those to be displayed, you could list those here. So that's optional, but you could list those and it'll show up on the dashboard. The rest of this stuff, you don't even mess with. Um, and it will all show up down here. So you can see we had that $1 donation to our PMO listed as an outstanding commitment. That's where it shows up there. The rest of this would be the budget and the expenditures. All right, now lastly, this section here is the current status. This is very similar to last year, the last fiscal year, where you would get an email periodically that say on your SMART goal, what was completed in the past month and the work upcoming for the current month. And so this needs to be a section, hold on a second, I might sneeze here. This needs to be an opinion of your status. So this is needs to be updated, and the update is done by this status update. And it needs to be done every month. You can do it more often or as often as you like, as long as you have at least one update per month. So if we go into the status update, we have some instructions on what we need to do here. So if we come in here and type in a status update, and I just type in my status for the past month. So we put in our status for the past month right here. This is stuff I'm going to do. That I'm going to do this month. And this would be the month I'm reporting for. Notice I reported twice in August. That's fine. You can report for that month as much as you like. So I could report for August again. For now, I'll just say it's already, I'm reporting for September. Now, the opinion of the overall health of your project. If this is defined, and I'll show you the help button for this, but essentially this is defined by Scott. If it's green, you're on schedule and you're on scope. Essentially, you're going to deliver everything on time and on budget. Yellow is if you're late or you're over budget or something, but you're still going to deliver. It's yellow. And then lastly, if you're not going to deliver the full scope of the project, then it's red. And so so those are the definitions by Scott. So let's say we're green on that. This is all opinion because they want to know the project manager's, the responsible's opinion of the project, not necessarily exactly what it says. So when we get to like the schedule item, you have like I think when we looked on the dashboard a minute ago, there were 6 late items. So you could still say it's green here, but if you're late, you may want to put it at risk. You know, yellow say, hey, I'm at risk on a few things. And that way it's aware because these statuses are preserved. They lock after you hit save. And so that you get a history of the project throughout the year. And so this information doesn't get lost. And for the scope, you know, if you're going to deliver everything, green. If you're at risk on the scope, put yellow, or if you're not going to deliver some of the scope, you put red. And then for the budget, if you're on budget, green. If you might go over budget, you're yellow. And if you're over budget, you're red. So you set your items. So you get these, this is your status. This was all the project manager's decision to put this stuff in here. And then when you hit the save button, this will update the dashboard. And this row is going to lock. And if we watch for long enough, you'll see the lock button pop up. But essentially, when we get, there's the lock button. And then when we go to the dashboard, we will see our update. This is the update that we just did, and it shows up on the dashboard. Now, say you get over here and you see a typo. Oh, I didn't capitalize the stuff. All right, well, let's go redo it. So you could just come in here. We'll redo it. I'm going to capitalize my S on stuff. And hit save. And so now our stuff is updated. And it knows that you just did it 1 minute ago, so it's no big deal. But it'll update your dashboard, and the reports that get looked at by senior leadership will have the latest update. So let's go look at the dashboard, and it's updated with the capital S. Oh, but I forgot that one, but anyhow. So that's how your current status. This gets rolled up into a report for SMART goals, and I'll show you where that goes. But essentially, we have covered everything that comes with your project. Oh, the help button. So the definitions for these colors, if you click the help button right here, it's got the definition for those colors. So you can come in here and look and see what the definition of those colors are. Um, but we just covered that. So anyhow, this is everything on the project. I don't think I mentioned, but if you click on this YPO at the top, it'll take us back to the navigational hub. You don't have to go back to SharePoint to get there. But if you click right here at the top on any of your templates, if you click that on the top, any of the projects, you click that, and it takes you back to the hub. So if we go to our SMART goal dashboard, for example, at the bottom, you can kind of see what's being reported by the SMART goals. So you can see um, this is test project 22 SMART goal, 15% complete. Status for the month, I accidentally clicked on it, so it took me to the report, but status for the past month and so on. And we marked it as green. So that's what's getting reported. So these are the projects that have been entered so far. Only my test project's fake. The rest of them are all real projects that are in here and being ready to be reported to senior leadership. Down below, if you remember, we had that one milestone number 2 listed as a SMART goal. This is where that's going to show up. So if you had multiple SMART goals in a project that were listed as milestones, then this is where that's going to show up, and it's also going to be a report that goes to senior leadership, and so the metrics will get reported and so on. So and you'll get the percentage complete. This is based on the schedule for that item, and so that's where that shows up. So I've covered a whole lot of information, um, and it might get confusing, but hopefully if you start working on your project, those templates will make sense. They'll, if you see anything that would be more useful, modifications that would be more useful, please let us know. Because this is our initial rollout of these templates. So I've been using them for my project for a month or two. And so I've refined them some based on my usage. But as the rest of the company uses it, I'm sure there's some good suggestions out there on how to make this stuff useful. If you do have some feedback, you can give us PMO feedback right here. That comes to my own personal dashboard for anytime someone enters feedback or anything like that. If you got a Smartsheet question, enter it here so that I can create a real answer for our Q&A. If you need help from the PMO, you can enter a form there. All these come to my dashboard, and so I can address them. And then back on our Q&A, if you had some questions, you feel free to click on that. We're going to come up with a community feed in Teams. I didn't show Teams. One more thing about this is its integration with Teams. So I'm going to close that out. Let's open. I'm going to bring Teams over here and show you how you can integrate with Teams. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that a lot of people get tired of all the emails like me. I don't like receiving so many emails for all the Smartsheet notifications. So in my chat, I have someone in here called Smartsheet. Where is it? Here. So one of the is Smartsheet. All my notifications come from Smartsheet. And I can also look at all the notifications I've received recently from Smartsheets. So none of my notifications get lost. I can just keep scrolling up, and find all my notifications. But it hits me here in Teams. I can see that someone added a project yesterday at 4:10 p.m. And I can go address it and make sure that they're still working on it, so it's okay. So I get all my notifications here, and you can do that too. And there are instructions on how to do that. If you were to click on this here, it can get that set up for you, and then you can set up in your settings to come to Teams. Separately, in Teams, a lot of times you want to have your team to have access to your project. So if I come here to, say, Project Management Office is a particular team in here, I can have the link directly to Smartsheet right here in Teams. So I'm still in Teams, but I've got it here. I could have my RAID log showing up here, and so people could just add actions throughout the week. And then when you get to your project call, you've got your agenda of all the action items that have been added throughout the week. And if they get addressed during the week as you've added them because people got notified that they were assigned to them, then when you get to your project call, some of those could be closed out at that point. So you can add various different tabs up here, linked to Smart Sheets. You can have your hub, and you can edit directly here. So if this was a link to my RAID log, I could edit directly into the RAID log right here. And so say I wanted to add it in here. I'm going to add Smart Sheet. And work account. After you get through all these access buttons, then I can choose what I'm putting in here. And so I find it easier just to type it in instead of drilling for it. So test project 22 it was. Oh, not enough. Test project 22, and I wanted to put my RAID in here. So let's go down, let's put my RAID log. Boom. I'm going to say for now, editable, anyone with the link, and save. And we can go through this sometime if you're going to do this. So now in here, I have my RAID log, and anybody on my team, oh, where is it? Did I click on the wrong one? Here's the RAID log. So anyone on my team from Microsoft Teams can come in here and add another action item or whatever. And hit the save button, and we've now added action items, and I haven't even left Teams. So you could have people do it from the conversations here in Teams. So anyhow, wanted to show that.
Hi, Sean. So there's a question. Deidre, you might want to ask it directly, but she's asking if you could share that again. I'm not sure what part.
What my question was that under the project management office, when you're in general, will that just show your stuff or is that everybody's stuff?
Will it just show you? It'll show anything you
I think I understand her question. So we actually have a project management office team. And
Okay.
he's showing you an example of how it would work. If you had a team that you wanted your project to show up on, he's showing you that you can add that project to your team, and it would just be whatever you added. So if you added 2 projects to show up there, both of them would show up.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
And adding them, it's easy to remove. So like if I just wanted to remove, you just hit remove and gets it back tomorrow. So anyhow, a useful integration with Teams there, and no more email to deal with on that. Any other questions out there? That is pretty much everything.
We don't have any more questions on the chat.
All right. Well, if anything does come up, let us know your questions so that we can address them. Feel free to go through the Q&A. Some of the stuff we've already covered is on there, like how to enter a SMART goal, your RAID, the description of focus topics, your RACI, this stuff's in here, the project plan. So some of the stuff is in here again. I plan to make some more detailed items in the future, but at least it can get you started.
So Sean, I've just got a comment. Sean and Rhonda, this is awesome. it's fantastic. Thank you so much. We can maybe look at a process. I love it that you guys are the entry point for projects. And as we assign that project name to have consistency across the organization, we can move to timely, have the same name, as well as financial force.
Yes, that's a good point. we do want to have the integration with Financial Force and Timely. So having consistency in name would be useful in keeping that link. Also, we've assigned all our projects a unique project ID. So if you'll notice in the project, I'll go to the project. There was a project ID. So let's go to our test project 22. At
That's
the top,
even better if we can get IDs.
yeah, so there's a PMO
Quicker.
152. So every project has a unique ID gets created when they entered in the form initially. So no matter what, if we could get Financial Force and them to use a unique ID like this, or this ID, it would be really helpful. That way, when we get time, we could track the time per project. And we do plan to integrate with Timely so that we can add to this dashboard not just the financials, but also add in here how many hours have been spent on the project. So that integration will be coming sometime as soon as we can figure out how to do the integration. That one, I don't think we have a live link, so it won't be like daily updated, but I think it can do an export, import using CSV. So we'll probably have like a weekly update where it'll have like the latest weekly update listed on the dashboard, sort of thing.
Very good.
All right, any other questions? All right, then. I guess that's it. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.